Welcome to Left Africa.
I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. You have a country that just throws its doors open with this massive, sweeping diplomatic gesture, right?
Right.
They grant visa-free entry to citizens of 32 different countries. It sounds like this huge leap forward. But at the exact same time, thousands of foreign nationals are literally fleeing that country for their lives.
Yeah, it is a completely wild split screen.
And if that wasn't enough, while all of this is happening, hundreds of thousands of the country's own citizens don't legally exist. The government has no record of them at all.
Like they are just living entirely in the shadows.
Exactly.
You're listening to Left Africa.
Before we continue, I need to be straight with you. Most of you are not subscribed to Left Africa. We just need one click. We promise you better production and deeper stories. Now back to the deep dive.
Our goal today is to unpack all of this. We are basing our deep dive on two really incredible sources.
We've got some great groundwork here.
Yeah, first we have this Daily Maverick video investigation by Tamsin Metellerkamp, which looks at the late birth registration backlog. And then we're pairing that with this very comprehensive Left Africa video dossier.
Right. And that dossier details what they call a twin documentation crisis.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand the quiet crisis of these invisible children, we first have to look at the very loud crisis happening at the country's borders.
Yeah, the contrast between the two is really the whole story.
Right. So around July 15th, 2026, South Africa announces this visa-free entry for 32 African countries.
Which on paper is exactly what regional economic forums have been demanding for decades. Right?
For sure. But the reality on the ground at that exact moment was violently different. Because right as they were rolling out the red carpet, this intense wave of anti-immigrant violence reached an absolute boiling point.
Yeah. It was bad.
Really bad. We saw vigilante groups issuing a very dark June 30 deadline.
A deadline for foreign nationals to just up and leave the townships.
Literally. And if we look at the BBC reports from that time, it wasn't just threats. These groups were doing house-to-house searches.
Oh, wow. House to house.
Yeah, demanding to see people's papers. And it led to mass evacuations. Like, foreign governments had to step in.
The logistics of that are just staggering.
I mean, Nigeria evacuated 1,490 of its people. Ghana had to pull out over 900. And Kenya airlifted 422 citizens safely back home.
You really have to pause and think about that. We are talking about sovereign governments chartering commercial airliners to extract their citizens.
Because the host nation couldn't guarantee their basic safety.
Exactly.
And the political fallout from this was massive, largely triggered by a specific tragedy. A Ghanaian trader named Bashiri Isik was killed in Cape Town.
And that tragedy really became the flashpoint for everything that followed.
It did. Now, I need to pause here and say that we are going to talk about the political fallout, but we are maintaining strict neutrality, okay?
Right. We are just conveying the claims outlined in the Left Africa dossier here. We are not taking political sides.
Exactly. So according to the dossier, Ghanaian citizens actually petitioned the International Criminal Court, the ICC, for a probe into the violence.
Right. And the dossier also notes an ICC report against the South African sports minister, Gayton McKenzie, for alleged incitement.
And again, those are claims from the dossier, but the diplomatic damage was very real. Ghana even blocked President Cyril Ramaphosa's state visit.
Which, in the context of African geopolitics, is a massive rebuke.
Totally. So zooming out, it's like sending out party invitations to the entire neighborhood while your house is actively on fire.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. Like, how could a state possibly attempt to manage both of these things at the exact same time?
Well, what's fascinating here is the dossier's perspective on this. They argue that the visa exemption was basically a diplomatic damage control exercise.
Like a PR stunt.
Kind of, yeah. It's an attempt to paper over these deep structural failures with a quick bureaucratic fix.
Trying to change the international headlines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are projecting Pan-African unity to hide the fact that the administrative engine is failing.
And that engine failure brings us to the quieter crisis. Because if the state's administrative systems are buckling under the weight of immigration, how are they handling their own citizens?
The short answer is they aren't.
Right. All the noise of the evacuations and the violence really drowns out the silence of South Africa's undocumented youth.
The invisible children.
Yeah. So let's look at the mechanics of this. In South Africa, you have a 30-day legal window to register a birth. Just 30 days.
Which is not a lot of time if you are in a vulnerable situation.
Not at all. And if a family misses that window, they fall into this massive bureaucratic abyss called late registration.
And getting out of that abyss is nearly impossible for some families.
Because the barriers are huge. I mean, we're talking about long rural distances just to get to an office.
High transport costs that families just can't afford.
Exactly. Or, post-labor health complications where the mother is stuck in the hospital past the 30 days.
Or the really complex rules for abandoned kids. Social workers can spend years trying to establish an identity.
And this leads to what the UCT Children's Institute calls the generational trap.
This is the part that really breaks my heart.
Walk me through it because it's wild.
So, if a mother herself does not have an ID, she literally cannot register her baby.
Because she legally doesn't exist in the system.
Right. So you get these cycles of invisibility. An unregistered mother has an unregistered child who grows up and has another unregistered child.
Wow. Imagine trying to play a massive multiplayer video game, but the system won't even let you create an avatar.
Yeah, that's it.
You're just locked out of the world entirely, just watching everyone else play. Because the life impacts are severe, right?
Devastating. If we connect this to the bigger picture, without an ID, these kids cannot write their matric exams, which is the high school graduation equivalent.
So no high school diploma.
No diploma. They cannot attend university. They can't open a bank account.
You can't even get a legal job.
Exactly. And this isn't just an administrative delay. It is a direct violation of Section 28 of the South African Constitution.
Which guarantees what, exactly?
It legally guarantees every single child a name and a nationality from birth.
Oh, wow. So the government is actively violating its own constitution on a massive scale.
Yes. Every single day that those kids remain undocumented.
So both the xenophobia crisis and this invisible children crisis, they both point back to the exact same administrative bottleneck, right?
Yeah, they really do. The Department of Home Affairs.
The Department of Home Affairs. They sit right at the center of both failures, migration management, and citizen documentation.
And they're currently facing a major legal showdown over this.
Right. In the Western Cape High Court,
Yeah.
the UCT Children's Institute and the Legal Resources Center are actually seeking a structural interdict.
Basically trying to force the department to provide a transparent plan to fix the backlog.
Because the data they provide is just all over the place. Let's talk about the data battlefield, because here's where it gets really interesting.
The numbers are just wild.
So former minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi cited that between 2018 and 2022, there was a backlog of over 250,000 cases.
250,000 kids.
Right. But then in May 2025 court papers, the department suddenly claimed they only had 33,000 cases pending.
Like they just magically solved the crisis overnight.
Exactly. But the UCT experts did the math, and they estimate the true 2024 backlog is still well over 240,000.
Yeah, the math just did not add up for what Home Affairs was claiming.
And when pressed on this at a June 10th, 2026 hearing, Home Affairs literally dismissed the numbers as a moving target.
A moving target.
I mean, let me push back here for a second. How does a modern government department just lose track of a discrepancy of 200,000 children?
That is the million-dollar question.
Is this just like a lack of technological infrastructure, or is it an intentional lack of transparency?
Well, it's likely a mix of both, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the important thing is that somewhere in that massive data gap, real human lives are just completely stalled out.
Yeah, 200,000 kids who can't take their exams or get a job.
Exactly. The overarching takeaway here is accountability. The institution meant to be the face of the state to visitors is failing to even recognize its own people.
It's failing at its most basic function. And we cannot talk about a broken administrative engine without looking at the economic fuel running it.
Oh, absolutely. The economic context explains so much of this.
South Africa has the highest Gini coefficient in the world, which means it has the most severe wealth inequality anywhere on the planet.
The gap between rich and poor is just staggering,
And unemployment sits around 32%.
with youth unemployment exceeding 60%.
60%. That is just an incredibly combustible environment.
It is, and the LeftAfrica dossier makes a really strong argument here. They say that immigrants are essentially being scapegoated for these post-apartheid structural failures.
Right, because it's easier to blame the foreign trader down the street than the invisible bureaucrat failing to fix the economy.
Exactly. But the fact that the state cannot document its own children that proves the issue is homegrown capacity.
It's not about demographic overload from immigrants. The engine is broken from the inside.
Totally broken.
And this has huge implications for the rest of Africa, doesn't it?
Massive implications. If you look at things like the African Continental Free Trade Area, the FCFTA and the AU Agenda 2063.
Right, these huge continent-wide economic dreams.
Yeah, and they both rely on the free movement of goods and people across borders.
But if the continent's most developed economy can't protect visitors or document its own citizens, that dream of a borderless continent is at serious risk.
You can't have free movement if people don't have basic identity documents. The whole system just falls apart.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, why should someone listening halfway across the world care about South Africa's Department of Home Affairs?
This raises an important question, really, because this story is a universal lesson in the fragility of identity.
Fragility of identity. I like that phrasing.
It proves that bureaucracy isn't just boring paperwork. It is the literal gatekeeper of human rights.
Without the paperwork, your rights don't practically exist.
Right. You are just a ghost in the system.
Man, that is heavy. But it's so true. So just to recap the journey we took today.
Let's do it.
We started by exploring this diplomatic visa announcement, right? Opening the doors to 32 countries.
Which seemed like good news at first glance.
But it quickly pulled back the curtain on a massive twin crisis. On one side, horrific xenophobia and evacuations.
And on the other, this generational invisibility trapping hundreds of thousands of citizens.
Exactly. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a brand new thought to mull over, building on everything we just discussed.
Okay, let's hear it.
We live in a world that is rapidly racing toward digital IDs, right? Biometric tracking, AI-driven economies.
Oh, for sure. Everything is going digital.
But what happens to the hundreds of thousands of people who are never entered into the foundational analog system to begin with?
That is a terrifying thought.
Do they become immune to modern surveillance? Like, are they the ultimate off-the-grid survivors?
Or are they completely erased from the future economy?
Exactly. Are they just erased? Is a physical piece of government paper really the absolute only proof that we actually exist?
That is going to be the defining question for the undocumented in the decades to come.
I think so, too. Well, thank you so much for joining us for today's deep dive.
It was a great conversation.
It really was. Keep asking questions about the invisible systems that govern our lives, and we will catch you on the next one.